and welcome back to The Third Seat for leaders navigating the chaos of growth. This is a podcast for the accidental leaders, the rebellious founders, and the CEOs of high-growth businesses who've built a juggernaut and are now trying to keep up with it. Today, I get the enormous pleasure of speaking to Zoe Shepherd, CEO and co-founder of The Social Shepherd. They are a social media agency based in Bath, which is where Third House is based, and we're really privileged to have them as a client. Social Shepherd has grown from Jack and Zoe, co-founders and partners in more than just business. They are married to each other. Grown since 2018 when they founded the business through to now, and they are currently at around 70 people with over £6 million turnover. And it's a stellar success in the world of social media. They are multi-award winning. Zoe herself has been recognised in Forbes 30 Under 30. And today we're going to be talking all about their growth journey, more from the point of view of Zoe's journey as a leader and what it really takes to shift from a founder who is all in and working crazy hours to get a business off the ground to leading that huge team of 70 odd people really intentionally as a CEO, and how to pull out of the detail and how to really think of yourself as a leader of that sort of bigger picture and the culture, and being cognizant of the growth trajectory that you want to take your business on. So I'm really excited to share this with you. Take your seat and let's get started. Today, I have the enormous pleasure of welcoming Zoe Shepherd, CEO of The Social Shepherd, to the third seat.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm going to dive straight in with our first question. So, most of this session, or this conversation.
Let's call it a session. I'm here
yeah,
for
it's We're going to be talking about your leadership journey. So, I've been listening to lots of other podcasts with you in, and where you've guested, and I think predominantly they focus on your business growth journey. And I think, for me, as founder of Third House and from a coaching point of view, what I'm really interested in this conversation is your leadership journey. So I'm going to take you right back to the very start, to that kitchen table. I don't know if it was a kitchen table or whether it was, but it's that sort of archetypal kitchen table, two of you deciding to start a business. And I'd like you to sort of think of a moment then and sort of picture it in your mind, and then contrast that with, walking into this huge and beautiful office in Bath this morning. And I'd really like to understand from you what feels different about that.
Yeah, so Jack and I actually talked about, so for context who's listening, I co-own the business with my husband, Jack. We were talking about this the other day and we, not from a leadership perspective, but we were reflecting on our work back then, because obviously when we started on things, we did everything. So we weren't leading a team. I guess we were kind of leading one another and kind of handling that, but it was just the two of us for the first 18 months. And I say this very carefully, but I would say in the early days, we look back on our work and we were like, it was really shit. I would have paid for that now. I feel sorry. We had to take a beat to learn our craft. And that is one of the things from a leadership perspective that I love now, because I never have to ask anyone in this business to do something that I wouldn't do myself or haven't already done. And granted, I guess in some ways that can be a negative as well, because it means that you're always a closer step away from being pulled into the day-to-day, which may not necessarily aid you if you're in a senior role and that's not really your focus. And I definitely fall victim to that. But yeah, look, I think it's a completely different job. It's probably the job that we always wanted to have and where we wanted to get to. But I think whenever you are an ambitious person and you've kind of hit some milestones and stuff, I'm sure a lot of people get it, is that you're kind of never done, you're never satisfied. And so whilst I know that back then I would be really proud of what we've achieved now, I'm like, okay, well, what's the next thing? How do we kind of get going on it?
That restlessness to achieve all the time. And when you kind of think about what you've achieved and the scale, if you like, of what's outside this room. For anybody who's watching, we're sat in the Social Shepherd podcast studio, which is an amazing thing to have. What's the predominant emotion about that? Is that a sense of responsibility? Is it pride? What does that throw up for you?
I think there is a bit of pride. Like I am really proud, particularly I know that like my younger version of myself would be very proud.
Yeah.
But it's more so like I want to get to the point in the business where I know that we're performing and doing what I know we can do.
Yeah.
So it's not,
yeah.
I'm not really looking at it being like, that's a finished product.
Yeah.
I'm super excited by it. It's more so I'm excited by the prospect of what it can be.
Yeah. So it's the potential.
Yeah.
In there. Do you ever get impatient about that?
I'm probably one of the most impatient people that you will ever meet in your entire life. It's probably like my biggest thing, and something that I'm aware of as a leader that is my biggest thing is like I'm always like wanting to improve and wanting to get better and stuff like that. So I don't mean to do this in any shape or form, but I know that I have a tendency, like when giving feedback and leading from that perspective, that I can always focus on like improvement points and what's going to help someone grow. And in my brain, you know, and obviously I've worked on this significantly, in my brain I'm going like, but that's good because that helps the person get to the next stage, which is what they want to do. But I think sometimes that impatientness can also dismiss you from celebrating the wins in the moment. And that also can be detrimental as a leader or a manager in those circumstances.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We had a client session yesterday, actually, where we talked about exactly that. That sort of, it is okay to stop every now and again and celebrate what we've achieved.
And I think you have to as well, like with your team. Like otherwise they don't really have an opportunity to be proud of themselves or know that you are equally proud of them in that moment.
Yeah.
And then they kind of get dragged into this like cycle of impatientness and just consistently, which like, you know, like I can admit that's not the funnest mental headspace to be in. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, so it is important.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So I've listened to lots of different things that you've done and podcasts that you've guested on. And, you know, I know you're one of our clients as well. I think the one thing I know about you, and certainly that I've picked up in listening to those other interviews, is that you have an incredibly strong work ethic. And I think that is in large part down to various things that you've experienced along the way. And also that feeling of wanting to realize your potential, right? It's shared by every single successful and high growth founder that we meet. That work ethic is such a big part of succeeding. But I think there's another side to it, right? And it meets probably with that impatience. But how has that work ethic shown up in how you've grown Social Shepherd?
I mean, I think like it's definitely changed. Like when we first started the business, Jack and I could do our 14-hour days back to back, and we probably did that for like 3 years and just kind of got to the point. Like I remember probably about 4 years in, and we'd gone through this huge growth trajectory kind of between 2.5 years in and that 4-year in point where the business just went completely boom overnight. And I actually, like, I don't even know if I was alive during that time period. Like, it's like a blur in my brain.
One big work day.
Yeah. I was like a zombie, literally. But like, it got to the point where we just hadn't structured the business correctly. I had like 17 direct reports, and you actually get to a point, and I don't, age probably has a part to play in it. So I was 25 then, I'm 30 now, but I actually think that you get to a point where you have to accept that there has to be more of a balance to it. Like I probably went a period of 2 years where I got 2 hours sleep a night. And like actually as you become more senior and you have more people that are reliant on you, the decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis, one, they increase in volume, and two, they increase in the importance of them and the amount of people that they impact. And so now I can't do. I mean, I can if I have to, but you know, it makes me sad. And like kills my soul.
Probably cognitively
a
less.
little bit. Doing those weeks of 14-hour days back to back, like it's just not. I won't be able to turn up. People will get a very impatient, cranky Zoe, and that's not what's needed for the team or for me, and that's no fun for anyone. So I think like work ethic shows up in different ways depending on what stage you're in as well. And I do just think it's like the sheer volume and the weight of some of the stuff that you're doing. It's like, I guess you could kind of liken it as like quantity of work versus quality of work, or like, I don't want to say importance, because obviously everything that you're doing is important, but like the weight of what you're doing. And I do genuinely think that like in the early days of starting a business, I mean, look, maybe you can do it if you're starting a business later into your career and you know your skill set inside out and you're a true expert, and people are going to pay you a high amount of money for a small amount of time, basically. I think you can probably have slightly more of a balance as such if you're starting a business at that point in your life. I was 23. I didn't have a bloody clue what I was doing. Jack was a nightclub promoter before he started it. I did 2 years in agencies. Like, we did not know what we were doing. The only thing that got us to where we were was work ethic. Yeah, and that sheer, like, this has to work. It just has to work. Yeah. And I don't think we would have gotten to where we are today without that work ethic. But that same work ethic has had to chop and change because you have to look after yourself. And I think I might have said it in one of the strat days, and it was like a bit of a brainwave for me where I was like, I'll look after myself for the team. Because if you don't look after yourself and you are doing those 14-hour days and stuff like that, you can't show up correctly for your team. And like, you could probably do it for a period of time, but like, you just turn into a zombie and not a good leader.
Yeah,
by doing it.
You can't pour from an empty cup. I know it's trite, but it's it's really true. And as your team grows, the demands of that grow, and there's a part of you that needs to anticipate those needs, I guess, in a way that means you need to have your head screwed on and not be exhausted.
And there is also like a different, like, I think one of the things that whenever I went into my career, because I've always been kind of this way inclined, and I've always kind of I take a lot of value in my work and helping other people and stuff like that. And like, even whenever I was the Specialist Works, which was the second agency I worked at, the one before we started this, I was like 22. And I can just remember at one point the first like kick up the ass I properly got. And I was doing this project for a client and they'd asked me to do it. And it was really good what I'd done. It was like a competitor analysis or something. And I went to a check-in meeting with my manager and it wasn't finished. And they're like, well, Zoe, it's not finished. And I was like, oh, I get it. This needs to be okay. And I remember like for the next 3 nights, I stayed in the office till 2 a.m. and finished it. Yeah. And it's like, so I've always had a little bit of that work ethic there because I just always wanted to do the best possible thing. Yeah. But there is a change now, and I think there's a lot of topic about, work-life balance and what that kind of looks like and stuff like that. And so I think as well, whenever you are managing a younger generation, and again, this is a controversial topic and it's probably one that you could eat into a thousand million times. But I don't think you can manage a group of anyone these days and have them see your success purely be drawn by your ability to absolutely hammer yourself into the ground with the amount of hours that you're working. I don't think that you're going to get the respect that you think you might get as a leader by doing that. What they want to see is someone, yes, you need to work hard, but actually what is more respectful to them is like mastering a skill set and being able to balance more so than anything. So I don't know, it's just an interesting sort of thought on work ethic in general.
It's really interesting actually, because I think it's about control, isn't it? And intent. And, there's something about if you're having to work those hours, then it sort of signals that you're not in control. Well,
it does. And it's like that whole term that's, gone around on TikTok. It's like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And I think now that we're moving into AI and a wave of automation and stuff like that,
it should allow for us to work.
It should absolutely allow for it. And like, I even know now, like, I'm a huge advocate for using AI in your day-to-day life and stuff. And at times have been known to quote being like, I didn't know how I did my job before it. But I can get through a shit ton of work now, and it just makes things a lot easier. So maybe even like the definition of what a good or a strong work ethic is probably has changed and is further changing.
Yeah.
Because if I look at Jack, for example, I would say he has a really strong work ethic. And I have got to the point where I have to really protect my personal time. I have to compartmentalize, and that's kind of how I handle things. Like I'm a very all or nothing person, so I can't kind of be semi-thinking about it. There's definitely some level of neurodiversity in there, but I've not been diagnosed with anything. Yeah. So I have to compartmentalize, but he just rallies through. So like, we'll be sat watching a film on like a Saturday night. He does not have the patience to watch a film unless he's forced to do it in the cinema. So he will consistently have his laptop up and he is just always writing notes about work. In his spare time, he watches business podcasts. He's consistently learning about it. And I don't know if if that also is kind of considered a version of work ethic, kind of the mental capability to keep going and keep evolving and keep striving for more.
Yeah.
So I think work ethic's a really interesting topic because I think it's ever evolving.
It is a really interesting topic. I have 2 questions. I've been trying to decide which order to ask them. So that sort of, because we talked about those early days and the contrast to now. And I guess the question that comes up for me is around that 3-year period of total absorption and head down and just going for it. Do you think if you had your time again that you would be able to get to the same place without that?
Not at the age at which we did it. And like, I do pride myself in a way. I do think and again, this is a bit cocky, but I think I could probably outwork most people. And Jack as well. Like, we work really bloody hard at what we do. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily wearing that as like a badge of honor type thing, because if you have to do that, like if you're getting the same outcome as someone and you're working 20% more, that's not a positive thing.
But if you're getting 40% more.
So I don't think so, to be honest. And I think I am actually, one thing I'm really happy about is that when we started the business, I had no concept of what I was getting myself into. Absolutely none. And if I did, and I could see, we've been through a lot of journeys and mental ups and downs and stuff like that, as I think anyone in any senior position in a business will go through. But I think I would be too wary of it now. Like, I think that naivety at that point and just like going for it had got us to where we are today. And I don't know if now at this age, with more responsibility, a mortgage to pay and everything of that nature, one, I don't know if you can give as much to it as I was able to at 23. Yeah. And I think it would just be harder. But again, that's a bias on my view of starting a business. So, yeah.
But I think it's shared actually by a lot of the people that I speak to in this context, but as well in coaching. I think you do need to be naive to just a certain extent to do it.
Like, I'm so here for just delusion.
Yeah.
But I was speaking to one of the team members earlier, because I think we were talking about Timothy Chalamet or something. And we were talking about like delusions of grandeur and stuff like that. And I was like, well, talent and delusions of grandeur are just a great pairing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But when you have delusions of grandeur and no talent, then we've got a bit of an issue going on there. I was having that conversation with Jeremy. But you have to have it, because otherwise you're too scared of what you're jumping into. Yeah. And I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people who've worked their way up at really high in agencies and have had to leave jobs because they've been burnt out or they've seen it, and then they go in to try and start their own agency, and they're like, this one's going to be different, we're all going to have like work-life balance and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that's great, but try and do that whilst you have a client that's being a fucking nightmare, and you've got a person issue going over here, and you're trying to optimize your staff to revenue ratio, and like, it's the mental load is tough. Even if you're able to manage the volume of work that you're doing, the mental load is tough on that. Yeah.
Where's your work-life balance now? And the other question I had was around how that work ethic shows up in how you lead, because I think that, combined with the impatience to reach that potential, is quite a potent combination in terms of how you show up for your people potentially. Do you get feedback, or do you see that in how you lead your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite lucky that I think we have quite a lot of people in the business who join maybe at like exec or manager level and have worked their way up to quite a senior role in it, who aren't afraid to check me. And like, I will say like, I know I'm a tyrant. Like, I always say to them, like, imagine being in my brain. It's exhausting. Like, so I need to be checked, and I will do things. I'm like, right, let's get this done by Wednesday. And they're like, no, like, we're not getting it done by Wednesday. And like, the team will check me from that perspective. And they need to as well, because I don't want to be a leader, and it's something I've definitely worked on and trying to set more realistic expectations and stuff like that. But it's definitely been a learning curve. And at the end of the day, like, this is Jack and I's business, and we have people that work very hard and are hugely invested, and we're really proud of that. But I don't expect anyone to care about it in the same way or give as much as Jack and I would to it. And that's, to be fair, that's always been the case. But like, I had never managed anyone before we started the business, nor had Jack. And, he openly doesn't necessarily love managing people, which is why, as you know, he manages a smaller portion of people. But yeah, it definitely has shown up, and you can't expect from others what you would necessarily expect from yourself. And also as well, just because you have a work ethic and might be able to get stuff done quicker or whatever it is, doesn't actually mean it's going to be any better than someone else who does it a different way. And I think that's the thing that sometimes you have to speak to yourself and be like, actually, you need to remember that other people approach things differently, and other people can get to the same, if not a better outcome by approaching things in their way.
Yeah. So tough though, when at the same time you've built all of this, and it's kind of you know that how you do things works.
Yeah, and like to be honest, I'm probably only just coming out of this now, and again, we'll still need to be checked from now and again. But you fall into that path of like, oh, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah,
or I know that I'll
We've
do it right. Type thing. Yeah, but it's not scalable, and you're not doing the business any good. You're not doing yourself any good by doing that. And so it's about giving people the tools so that they can do it. And like now my kind of ethos is I don't really care how you get there, just get there basically, and tell me what you need from me and I will help unlock blockers for you along the way type thing. So really trying to put a bit more control and autonomy in other people's hands.
Yeah, it takes time though.
It does.
Yeah.
It
it's
does.
not an overnight
and you don't
thing.
realize at the time, like when you're doing it, that it comes from a place of personal, professional immaturity as well.
Yeah, possibly.
And it's not always like, you're doing it because you care, and it's but it's definitely not scalable.
Yeah. Become a bottleneck very quickly.
Yes.
It's interesting though, because I think working in an environment like this, like you say, it's not for everybody, and the people that do stay have that same sense of work ethic. And I think, it's often difficult at the time. It's challenging at the time. I've worked for really demanding managers and bosses, but when you look back on those periods and you realize how much you grew and how much you achieved, actually it's really powerful. And it's growth is change, and change is hard, and it's all that sort of sense of feeling difficult in the moment. But I think you've got a team that is learning and growing along with you, and that's really great.
Yeah, it's nice. I really enjoy working with the team, and I think it's really nice that it feels like we all have kind of grown up together a little bit. Yeah. And, like, it's fine. Like, sometimes people grow to a certain point and they decide they want to get off the ship, and that's okay. Like, we'll support them on that journey and stuff like that. And then some people want to hop on the ship, and it's just kind of how it works. Yeah.
You've had some people come back, haven't you?
Had a couple people come back. Yeah. Always try and keep the door open to people. But yeah, we've had a few loop-de-loops happen. That's nice.
Hi everybody. Just a reminder, I'm Rebecca Morley and we are Third House. We help ambitious entrepreneurs to become better, more intentional leaders. You can find us at wearethirdhouse.com. There you can find a free, really quick 5-minute assessment that you can take to see where you are on your leadership journey and to learn more about working with us to shape your own leadership path. Now back to the episode. So you talked about Jack a little bit.
Yes.
That's something that we don't often see, married couples running businesses at this kind of scale, if you like. Have you had to deliberately decide how to work together, or is it just sort of evolved over time?
It's just evolved over time. Like, we definitely have a much better rhythm of it now, because I guess when we started it was just the two of us, so it was our entire life.
Yeah.
it was all we did. And I think, we've been doing, it's been 7 years since we've had this business now, and I think we got married a year and a half ago. And I think when we kind of got engaged, we were like, do you know what, we need to find a little bit more of a balance, because if we just keep working and working and working, we're actually going to end up being quite resentful of the business, because personally we won't have made the advancements that our peers have made and that we both have always wanted to do as well. And you don't really want to end up in this period of like just consistent self-sacrifice.
Yeah, you lose yourself as well.
You do, and it's not going to be good for the business, and it's not going to be good for you. So I think, and like Jack and I are such different characters, like, that we're very different people.
Yeah. But it works.
It does work. So yeah, we have had to adjust and stuff. But he always says this thing. He's like, Zoe's like, she's a soft girl at the weekend and she's a hard girl in the week. And like every Sunday at like 6 p.m, he's like, oh, you're about to transform, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, like, well, we got a plan, Jack. So yeah, but I honestly, like, I love running the business with Jack, and I think because I am a very like all or nothing person,
Yeah.
and he kind of is the same, it works that way. I can't really imagine. That's just because my reality hasn't been there.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would want to run a business on my own. I think he could.
Well, he did before as well.
Yeah,
I guess,
he did.
didn't
He did
Yeah.
before, but I think he's probably more of a natural entrepreneurial person. Because I think I could be a corporate girly again one day. You never know. But yeah, I think I'd find it really lonely, and I think and maybe that's because I've done more of the management piece and dealt with more of the people stuff and things like that, and that is really lonely. Like whenever you're having to consistently deliver news to people and stuff like that, and yeah, but it does impact it, and I think when it impacts it is whenever one person feels like they're giving more than the other person is giving.
Yeah,
and then you just have to get to a point where it might be that one of us is like working later into the evening, but the other person is picking up more stuff at home and things like that.
Yeah, so you find that balance somehow, eventually.
Yes.
It's quite interesting because I think often when one person in a couple is founding a business, and that those early years where it is all encompassing, and from time to time those occasions or those periods of time when the business just takes over, it's like having a third person in the marriage, isn't it? And that can cause resentment because there's an imbalance. And I wonder to what extent actually you being married and on this having the same purpose in both like work and life has really fed into the success of Social Shepherd.
Yeah, I mean, I think us being together and running the business has definitely aided the success of the business, purely because you've got two people who are going to mutually benefit from the success of something, and you haven't, we earn exactly the same.
Yeah.
We both equally contribute to our household income, so you're not more reliant on one than the other in some instance like that. So it's definitely benefited that. I think it means that work in our business has probably taken a larger chunk out of our personal life than it traditionally would. But that doesn't really bother us because we're doing it together, and you're kind of building something for both of you. So I think the business has benefited from it. And like I said, I don't know, maybe the team would say a different thing if you asked them, but we are so different that people are like, it even in work, for example, like we've had people come into the business where they haven't been told that Jack and I are married, and like Jack's like said to me something like, "Oh, what do you want for dinner?" And like people have like someone's gone to their manager and been like, "I think something's going on with like Jack and Zoe," and they're like, "They're married. Like, what are you talking about?" So I think the business has benefited from it, but that's not to say I don't think that it's like we don't sit beside each other every single day. We have very separate roles in the business.
Yeah. I think it works that, from my point of view anyway, observing you in action, I think it works that you're so different because you're not trying to occupy the same territory.
No, when we do try and occupy the same territory, it's terrible.
That's
awful.
Yeah.
Like we actually hate having meetings, just the two of us, because like our brains work very differently as well. I'm like, Jack, put the plan on paper and give me half an hour to review it. And he's like, no, I'm just going to talk you through it. And I'm like, yes, but you're talking me through 50 different things at once, and I don't know how they're going to connect. And have you considered the operation, how this is going to operate? And he's like, Zoe, that's not my job. And and like you guys have seen it, like, and I guess because we're so comfortable with one another, we will just be like, oh, that's a silly idea, like what you on about it type thing, which I guess maybe is not a level of comfortableness that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have in a workplace. But I actually think it helps us probably get stuff done a bit quicker.
Yeah. Do you think that's impacted on the culture? Do you think you created more of an open culture by role modelling that openness, maybe?
I mean, I'd like to hope so. I mean, I like culture is an interesting one. That that we've had to do a lot of work on company culture and stuff like that. And I'm not afraid to shy away from that in a way. But I mean, I feel very close with the team, and I would like to hope that they feel like they can come to us, and they do come to Jack or I, and they will say, look, we think you just kind of need to be aware of this, or this is kind of happening, some more than others potentially. But I'd like to hope so. Yeah.
It feels very warm working with the team. It does feel like a sort of warm environment to work in, and I wonder how much.
I think that's my proudest thing is the team and the group of people that we've brought together. And I think it's like a huge responsibility to be able to continue winning the work and supporting them in their ability to deliver the work that they want to deliver in their careers. because I think that's where true like job satisfaction comes from, basically.
Yeah. And being a really creative, you're not just a sort of paid media social agency, you are really creative as well. And I think you need a certain level of personal psychological safety, if you like, to be creative, don't you? You have to come from a safe place.
Well, you do, yeah. And I think like we're going through a period at the minute where operationally we did it. We set the business up. We went through this period like 2 years ago. We were like, right, we're going to professionalize the business. If we're going to scale, this needs to be done and stuff like that. And actually, we ended up at a point where we said something. I was like, we're acting like we're a 250 person agency. There's 70 of us. We're not that big. Yeah. Like, we need to get over ourselves. Okay, there's too much red tape here. I was like, fuck the process. And everyone was like, Zoe, you built the process. I was like, I know, but I don't care about it anymore.
I'm done with the process.
So I think like from a creative perspective, like, yes, 100%. I completely agree about psychological safety. That comes from a cultural perspective, but we also need to have that set up operationally in terms of like people having time to be able to do it, know that they are
scaffolding.
It's important. So I think it's great that that's kind of been observed, and yes, that's important. But I think that takes work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
The way to achieve that in a business of different sizes, there's different ways and things to take into consideration for it.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting point, and it leads me on to my next question, which is you have made, and you've talked about making that deliberate shift from startup to scale up. What are the things that had to shift then? So you sort of maybe felt like you went a bit too far on process.
It went way too far. But then sometimes like I find it interesting because we'll have other people join us from other agencies of similar sizes, and they'll be like, they have no process there. And I'm like, well, we've got too much process here. So like it feels like no one finds like the sweet spot of it, basically.
I don't think there is. Different people need different amounts
exactly.
of it.
And like I guess it's a good place now that we get to backpedal a little bit. It's easier to depends how you look at it, but it's, we're kind of going back a little bit just to make sure we're as agile as possible. Sorry, Rebecca, I forgot what your question was.
That's all right. So as well as process, what else, when you're making that deliberate shift from startup to scale up, what constitutes that deliberate shift?
Yeah, so I think for us, and again, this is something I think I as a leader, I'm always going to struggle with. It's getting the right infrastructure around you to be able to focus on driving the business forward and like the vision and stuff like that. So one of the first things that had to happen was I ended up in a position where I had 17 direct reports or something stupid.
Yeah, it's massive.
And so we went, okay, well, we need to build a leadership function underneath that. So it's, it takes a bit of time, but getting leaders in, then building up an SLT, getting that SLT to a functional point and making sure that they're clear on what they kind of need to do, operations and processes in place, but not building a culture where people just follow the process for the sake of the process. Yeah. And I think that's what we're really doing now, is like really trying to encourage curiosity and autonomy within the team. Like if the process doesn't aid the work is more important than the process. Yeah. So it is just getting to a point where if you know that you want to hit, you want to double your head count or you want to triple your head count in the next X amount of years, or you need to be able to carry a certain caliber of client, then you need to change that. And like one of the things that was a big one for us is we won a really large fashion retailer about 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago into the business, and we weren't set up to deliver it. Like they had the skills in the business to set it up, but the processes and the operations just weren't there. So there's multiple different catalysts that kind of happened for it. But I think, and you can also go too far the other way. Like at one point we kind of had always gotten to a business because all of our leads are inbound and that's kind of how we manage it. And so we're always under-resourced for the amount of business that we were winning because we had such a high conversion rate. And so we got to a point where we were like, okay, well, we know we're always going to need team members. So when we find a talented person, we'll just bring them into the business. But then whenever you level up to a higher caliber of client, naturally you go from being the slightly bigger fish that is better set up compared to more of some boutique agencies, and you go to being the little fish compared to some of the big boys. Yeah. Or ladies, or theys. So
but it's leveling up each time, isn't it?
So your conversion rate is naturally going to drop a little bit, so that you've resourced your business to meet a conversion rate that you can't sustain. So it comes and goes, and we were able to work our way out of that situation, and we used that time with that extra resource to level the team up and kind of work on it. But not every single business, like if you have a board of investors on that, is going to be able to make that decision purposefully, and they'll have pressure elsewhere. So I don't know if I would be the best educated person to talk or advise other people on how to go through a scale-up process, because I think it's all quite personal to how we've kind of handled it here, which is a relatively unique situation.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm hearing, though, most is that you made the decision and were intentional about it rather than just sort of accidentally letting it, oh, shit, like we've got a big business now. There was a moment in time where
that kind of did happen, though. Over that period, it just kind of went from like 15 to 45 really quick. Yeah. And again, I can't really remember what happened, but we were intentional with it. And it was, and I remember like it was in the pandemic and we were doing a whole lot of pitches, and Jack kept being like, we need to hire. And I said, we haven't won the business yet. We're not hiring. Like, I'm not making an irresponsible decision on that type of thing. So, but we always knew that we didn't want to have a boutique agency forever. Yeah. And so I think we've kind of got up to the 70 point. We've kind of been hovering here for probably about the last year and a half. And we kind of want to go through that next phase of growth. But that next phase of growth will look very different now because of AI and automation coming into play. So that won't necessarily be represented in headcount at the same proportion as we would previously have expected in relation to revenue.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the positives so far. You've talked previously about kind of roadblocks or hurdles to growth. When you encountered those roadblocks and or hurdles, and you don't have to talk about what they are necessarily if you don't want to, what have you learned about yourself as a leader through the difficult times, if you like?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. And I think it's like you learn as you grow through your leadership journey. Like, you take everything so personally at the start of it. Like, when someone like hands their notice in, you're like, my soul is dying. Like, and you take it so personally. And I remember one time Jack and I were on holiday, and we hadn't taken a holiday in ages, and something was going on in the business, and I was just like ringing my dad every day crying, and he was, bless him, was just like, oh, and it was because Jack had enough of listening to me at this point.
I'll find a backup.
So I was like, I'm going to ring my dad and just cry to him every day. Yeah, look, I think you go through things. When a business grows so quickly and when you are so invested and you care so much about the people, like it can be really emotional, but you grow through that and you build emotional resilience. And that's not to say you become heartless. You're still very empathetic to people and yourself as well in those situations. But I think at the end of the day, if you're in a leadership position, the job is as a problem solver. And some of the problems are big problems and some of them are little problems. Yeah. And so I think you learn to just accept the fact that every day you walk in, you are probably going to be chucked something that you didn't think was going to happen whenever you woke up at 6 a.m. that morning. And you just learn. And that's where I think it comes from, is like you can walk in to a room that is burning down and you can still go, okay, we can sort this out. What's the process here? And I think that's been the most important piece. Like, and there are situations, you're handling revenue, you're handling people, and those two things don't necessarily complement each other sometimes. And you've got to find a balance between it too. So, but I will always say that the people side of things is the most complex part of this business. Yeah. Because I think when you run an agency, at the end of the day, it's tacky to say, but your people are your product and you're selling people's time. And sometimes your product isn't feeling well. And sometimes your product isn't having the great day. Or sometimes your product's cat has died. Or sometimes they've broken up with their boyfriend, or they're getting a divorce. Or I don't know what's going on. Yeah. But it's like, it's very different. Complex. And again, look, you would have completely different problems, which I'm not minimizing, and would probably be just as, if not more stressful on that actual physical product-based business. But you're hopefully selling a product that has not as many feelings and isn't going to break, basically. And I think as a leader in an agency, you have to have a higher level of empathy than you maybe need to have elsewhere, just because of that nature of the fact that you are selling people's time. That's also quite, that in itself, I think, as an individual, to put yourself in a situation where you're at the end of the day, someone is selling your time on your behalf. That's quite a vulnerable place for you to put yourself in as well. And you're putting a lot of trust in that business to give you the tools that you need in order to be able to do a good job and to be able to give you the training and stuff like that. So that's what makes the people side of things so complex. And even regardless of that piece, people are naturally going to be complex because we're not all having the best day of our lives every single day.
That's really fascinating. I'm learning stuff as well. So thinking about all of that, that all ladders up to needing to create quite a unique culture. Mm-hmm. So, the fast growth and the fact that people are your product. How do you maintain, and how have you maintained your culture through that journey? Because that's,
it's been an
interesting
thing. Yeah, it is. And we had to have a very purposeful conversation with our team probably about 6 months ago where we were like, our culture has dropped. And it becomes a point where, like, and I think some of the team that have been here for a while will kind of look back on the glory days, and we didn't realize we were like in the glory days when we were in them, whenever there was a team of 20 people.
Good old days.
Jack and I were a bit younger. I'm not saying we're geriatric now by any means, but like, I can't go out to the pub every single week. Like, my soul can't take it. I can't drink that much anymore. Like, it's just, but those little things, like they keep things alive, and you feel like you're in it together, and everyone knows what everyone's kind of doing and stuff like that. And so whenever you do grow a bit bigger, and we've opened the States and stuff like that, which means my time's split out there a little bit, and you are reliant on other leaders to be leading your vision in the way that they feel is kind of necessary. So I don't know if I could say that we've successfully maintained culture. I would say that we've managed culture and it's shifted as it kind of should do. But there was a point, and I think the team really appreciated it. And we have a culture committee now that we talk about all these things with and stuff. But the culture had shifted. And I think the biggest thing that we've kind of worked through is like, every single person in the building is responsible for the culture. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest piece. Like, the culture can't just be myself and Jack or the SLT or anything like that. Every single person is responsible for it. But I think sometimes I've definitely done this in the past where you try and avoid saying what it actually is. And so now we will stand up in front of the team and say, every single person in this room is responsible for the energy that they bring. And that doesn't mean you have to be bouncing off the walls every single day, but it's like purposeful communication. It's little things, saying hello and goodbye to your colleagues whenever you walk into the building. It's, saying like, I'm going to pop upstairs to work today. I'm just having a bit of a quiet day. Like it's creating security in an environment that everyone feels like open and supported in. So I don't think I could say that we've successfully maintained the culture, but I would say that it's shifted, and it's not. I remember at the start, whenever we were like 2 years old, being like, we'll never have a culture problem. Like, everyone loves it here. Like, like it's the best thing. And we would always get feedback from the team, like, culture is amazing. Like, we just love it type thing. And then, we hit sort of year 4 and 5 and we'd scaled to a point and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like, this is something you actually have to intentionally work at, because we hadn't had to do it before. So I think now we are very intentional about the way they work. And we've got Kelly and we've got a team and a really great leadership team. So that really helps too. Yeah.
How would you describe your culture?
Friendly. Hardworking, like I would say, like I openly say in interviews, like, I expect everyone in this building to work hard, not at the detriment of their personal life or their health. Absolutely not.
No, but when you're working, it has to be
working hard and being ambitious and being curious and proactive, and I think that is really important. But it's definitely a friendly, warm place to be. And we expect good work from people, and we expect open communication. So, we have a list of cultural values, but I'm not going to bore you with that. But
maybe put that in the show notes.
Yeah. But one of the core things is that we are all the culture. Yeah. And so everyone is responsible for it. That is kind of like the tail end of our values, is that, like, we are all responsible for the culture.
Yeah. Do you hire for culture or do you hire for skills?
So we do hire for culture, but one thing I would say is that we're getting even more purposeful with hiring for culture. So we talked about this in our last culture committee, which I've only just actually come back into in the business. We had another team sort of leading it at that point in time. But people were talking about, you know, we had an annual survey and people were talking about whether they felt what did they contribute to the culture type thing. And the team were talking about it, and we were actually talking about you need to have an alignment of how much people care about culture.
Yeah.
Because not everyone going into a job, culture isn't necessarily like in their top 3 things that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like some people don't go to work for that. Some people just go to work for a paycheck and then they get their cup filled up elsewhere from that perspective. Whereas I think here, and I think in agencies in general, they do have a bit more of a reputation for being friendlier places where you rely on one another a little bit more. So, yeah.
Interesting. So, you've transitioned through founder into sort of agency leader, if you like, so it's just you and Jack, into leading a small team, into the MD role, and now the CEO role. What, if anything, and you know that might feel sort of quite organic and like they're just letters that you've put to yourself for the sake of the org chart, but what have been the sort of catalysts of those shifts, and what's needed to change about your leadership style?
So I guess I was kind of always the MD from day dot, and then went through that big shift and change. And I think you see MDs and like they tend to have sort of like a 4 to 5 year lifeline, particularly in agencies. Like it's quite an intense role, and I think I had been through quite a lot in it. So then at one point I was like, I think I need to move on and have my focus elsewhere within the business. And Jack was like, well, I'm going to do the MD. And he didn't love it. And then Sarah stepped into it. So yeah, the main catalyst for me moving away from the MD role was I think I'd just done so much time and like getting the business operationally set up and to a point. And I think I kind of needed to step away from it for a second to be able to look at it from a bird's eye view. And now I'm kind of coming back into it, but with guardrails as to what I will and won't kind of get, and we're trying to anyway.
Oh, it's so hard.
It is, yeah. But that was the main kind of catalyst there, is that I think being fully transparent is that like I'd done 5 years with a lot of people reporting directly into me. And it wasn't like, I don't think you can say I needed a break, because you don't get a break moving into a different role. But it was just, I needed a pace and a change. And I think that's important as a founder as well, is that like, you know, you're glued to something for a long period of time and you can't just walk away from it. And I don't know, neither of us want to walk away from it, but you also have to give yourself a bit of diversity throughout that tenure of that. So yeah, that's probably like the main catalyst there. Yeah.
And a lot of people talk to us about feeling something of an identity crisis when they shift like away from the detail. Have you felt any of that moving into a different role?
Hard. And I think I'm such an operationally minded person.
Yeah.
And I know how the business glues together in the back of my head. So find that quite hard to walk away from it. And also kind of think about where your focus should be if it's not focused in those places.
Yeah, that's the biggie.
Yeah.
What is my job now?
Yeah, no, exactly. And to be honest, I don't even know if necessarily Jack and I have got it completely nailed. Like I think we kind of, you know, he's in charge of new business and marketing, but I get involved in that in some ways. And so we have talked before about, you know, we should just be co-founders. But yeah, it takes time to kind of evolve. And as well, it also feels like, particularly when you're a founder and you have a job title, you kind of feel, and look, you feel this way. I'm not necessarily saying it's representative of the reality. Yeah. You feel kind of fraudulent. You're like, I've just given myself a job title. That's nice. Like, no one actually said I was qualified for that. But I think for us and the rest of our board, we're advocates, and you know the business needs the 2 roles that we are in. It's also important for clarity for the team.
Yeah,
to
and
know,
for you as well.
Yeah, to know where our focuses are and stuff like that. So, yeah, job titles are a funny topic.
It is a funny topic.
It makes me feel mildly uncomfortable. Like my toes are curling right now.
I think we work with a lot of CEOs, founder CEOs, who are quite humble in that way and are uncomfortable with that. And, you know, you sort of built this business and by default, rather than design, you've ended up in this CEO role right at the top. And it is often quite uncomfortable. And it's really interesting to sort of think about what behaviours that creates, because you sort of naturally put yourself in a position of authority, and yet you're not actually all that comfortable with. You want to reach the potential. You want to do good work. You want happy clients. You want a happy team. You don't necessarily want the authority and the hierarchical kind of box that you found yourself in. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. It's kind of there's a lot of like twists and turns in that, and like you've got a responsibility to the business as a founder and stuff. And I do think that's one of the things that's been good about Jack and I doing it, is that it's been nice to split up those kind of founder-led tasks in the areas that we kind of need to be. So that has been one positive, and I guess that's why we probably do those job titles in that way.
It's not a power play, I suppose, in the way that some people who've sort of gone, right, I'm going for that job in this big organisation that I've been working my way up to.
No, it's not, I guess. It's not. And I guess like back in the day, whenever it was just Jack and I, there was the two of us, and I was a managing director. like I'm wincing looking back then.
But that's more client facing.
Like, well, it is. Like, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
Interesting. We'll continue to ponder that one.
Yeah.
Okay, final question before I let you go then. For anyone in the messy middle, feeling that sort of startup culture fray, let's call it, can you offer any advice? One mindset shift, a sort of action that somebody can take? What is your advice to somebody that's sort of where you were 4 or 5 years ago?
Get sleep.
Like,
no, I mean it. Like,
draw boundaries.
You must get sleep. Like you must.
Yeah.
Your brain won't be able to work. You won't be making decisions. You will not be rational in your own head. You will not be kind to yourself. It's not good for you. Like you need to sleep. Like I actually think sleep solves a lot of things.
I do.
Yeah, it does. It's so important. And also, like, what feels big today will not feel big in 3 months' time. Yeah. And I remember, like, at that point when, I wasn't sleeping. It sounds like I've had a newborn baby or something like that whenever I talk about this. I haven't. I just had a startup business. When you're not sleeping, you're going through a wave of, I don't know, something really difficult with a people issue or something like that, which is really challenging and quite emotional for you to deal with, but you can't really show those emotions because you're the leader in the business, so you bury them, and that's quite hard.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation.
It's really difficult. And then you've got a client to talk about, and you still got to operate at the same time. Like, I used to keep a list on my phone that was like things that feel big now, and then I would write a date next to it, and then I would go back and look at it in 3 months' time. Yeah. And so that meant that when something was feeling really big to me and was kind of all encompassing, I could go back to that old list and be like, well, it feels how this felt then, but I don't care about that anymore. Not that I don't care about that anymore, but it doesn't feel big to me anymore. It's just a situation that happened that I dealt with. And then that teaches you that you are building resilience over time, and that you can kind of do that. And then you get to a point where you don't need that list anymore, because you know that, what is it? It's like, this shall pass.
This too shall pass.
That one. Like, that is true. Everything passes, and you build up that resilience. So
yeah, they tell you when you're making big decisions, you sort of ask yourself, will I still care about this in 5 years' time? If you're losing sleep over a decision, I think it's the sort of other side of that coin. I'm going to steal that technique. I love training your brain.
Yeah, I know.
Everything is
going back
important.
through my like notes on my phone from like 3 years ago would be like a really interesting place to be.
Another time. Well, thank you very much. This has been really interesting. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I think it's really interesting because we've always talked in a business context. So actually indulging my curiosity in your leadership and what goes on in your brain has been really amazing.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining us on The Third Seat. I really hope this conversation gave you some reflection points, some insights, or some inspiration to think about how you can become a more intentional leader. If you have any questions or any reflections, please do get in touch. We love to hear from you, and we'd love to answer some of your questions in a future podcast. In the meantime, follow the show and do join us again for more conversations with scale-up leaders. We've saved you a seat.